Our story begins with three girls who are guessing on the blackboard, calling on a certain Bi Xian to tell them whether the head of the class loves them or not. The dark-haired girl takes the initiative. Taking the coin, she repeated again for Bi Xian to come and let her know whether or not the class elder could love her. The coin moved a little. It could be either otherworldly or the girls themselves had accidentally moved it. Afterwards, the girl got angry because the coin moved to a negative answer. She threw the coin on the board and said that it was not accurate at all. After all, she was sure that the head teacher definitely loved her. Her friend asked her to be more polite to otherworldly spirits because she believed in their existence and was sure that she would be punished for such an attitude. The dark-haired girl still called Bi Xian a waste of time and was sure that if she was really going to be punished, it would have happened by now. There was no way she would believe that the head of her class didn't like her, so she concluded that Bi Xian and all of them were liars. Her friends looked at her with an intimidating look. She had never seen them so scared before. There were some ghosts behind her. She didn't see it. She asked her friends why they were looking at her so strangely. Not feeling the ghost's hand on her face, she only felt a sharp coldness that pierced her from head to toe. The girls started screaming and begging for help, but no one came to them. After a certain amount of time, there was dead silence in the hangar where they were. After some more time, the police and people in special clothes arrived on the scene to search for evidence. One of the girls was taken to the ambulance because her condition was critical. They all ran around trying to help her. They tried to save her by giving her electric shocks, but her heartbeat was getting worse and worse. Another one of the girls, sitting on a bench, as it turned out, she was the only one unharmed. According to the policeman, one of the girl's classmates was dead and the other had been in an accident. He needed this girl to tell him everything that might have happened here before. This girl was sitting with her head down and looking at one point, repeating that she didn't see anything. According to her, she was very frightened and hid in a corner, so she did not see or hear anything. For the policeman, it was strange that she did not see anything, but still she was frightened by something. She did not just hide. The girl only wanted to go home quickly because not everyone can survive such a thing. We still need to find out what happened there. When the girls looked at her, they saw her hand hanging in the air, but she didn't feel it. But then she looked up and saw her arm freeze in a raised position by itself. She felt someone pulling on her arm. Before she knew it, she was pulled so hard that she just flew after her arm. She was dragged straight into a warehouse where huge crates stood. The impact was on her back, on a strong, big crate, and she screamed because the pain was terrible for such a fragile girl. The crate shattered, and she flew onward. When she flew on, it didn't end with one crate. Something smashed a couple more crates. After the first one, she stopped screaming because she lost consciousness. Her friends were shocked at what they saw. They didn't know what to do in such a situation and how to escape, so they tried to open the locked door, screaming for help so that someone would hear them. They knocked and screamed. They didn't even look at what was happening behind them, but that ghost had reached them. The female individual who was the ghost of the killer was already standing behind them. Once they realized this, it was too late for them to run anywhere. They were trapped in a trap. While she was remembering this, the policeman kept asking questions. He wondered why she was so scared when she said she hadn't seen anything. He tried to threaten her that she might become a suspect in the murder. After such words, she could not believe that such a serious crime could be put on her. The policeman asked her to be honest with them, because she was not in a good position. A girl comes to them and asks Xiaoshu, the victim's name, that she doesn't have to answer their questions. This girl is the chairman of Lin Xin's legal organization. Her name is Lin Wang. She assumed that the girl is very shocked, so she is unable to answer any questions. So she also has already had time to fill out the bail documents, so she intends to take Xiaoshu with her. After she took her away, they left. As it turned out, Lin Wang is the injured girl's aunt. She promised to settle everything if she told her everything. The girl didn't think long and told her aunt that they were attacked by a ghost. The aunt didn't really believe her words. She thought it might be because of the shock she had experienced. The girl told her how her friend was thrown like a toy. The ghost was very strong. Afterward, she told her that they were like wooden puppets, unable to control their bodies. She remembered everything that had happened and also told her that another classmate of hers was beside her, and the classmate begged for mercy, but Xiaoxiu couldn't control her body. She started to tell what and how things were happening, but her aunt interrupted her, saying that it was all her imagination and nothing more. Her aunt explained to her that when people are very frightened, they can make up an illusion to avoid reality. As an example, when playing a game of Bizian, you definitely think you're possessed by a ghost. Therefore, she suggested that she give her a good rest. Even though Xiaoxiu told her aunt that it wasn't a hallucination, she saw the ghost and all the things that thing was doing. She remembered how the ghost told her that she wouldn't be able to escape. It promised to destroy her entire family, relatives, and friends. The girl's depression only made the ghost stronger. The aunt still insisted that the girl rest properly. She promised to look into everything. The girl had something on her neck. It looked like tentacles. Xiaoxiu asked her aunt for a sleepover with the excuse that she was afraid to sleep. Her aunt noticed this strange creature on her neck. She was very surprised, but she tried not to show it. Taking her hand away from her niece, she agreed to her request. While they were talking, a guy appeared on their way, standing straight in the middle of the road. The driver didn't understand what the guy was doing, so he decided to slow down. The guy in turn swung his weapon and launched it straight at the car. The launched weapon flew through the windshield and flew straight at Xiaoxiu. It hit her in the face with such force that she flew out the back window of the car. The car immediately stopped. The guys got out of the car and didn't even immediately realize what had happened. Lin Wan was still worried about her niece, even though she saw that strange creature on her neck. The guy immediately said not to go near that girl at all costs. Even though they tried to approach her, the guy warned them again, telling them that she was no longer human, that they should stay away from her. One part of the guards ran towards the girl, while the other part was ordered to destroy the guy. Before they started shooting, the guards wondered where he could have come from on the bridge, so unexpectedly. As they started firing at him, they marveled at how the guy effortlessly dodged the bullets. The guard didn't understand how it was possible, so they started shooting together, hoping that a lot of bullets would hit him. But then the guy drew his weapon and started to easily dodge all the bullets that were fired at him. They didn't realize it. They even assumed he wasn't human. But at one point they were distracted by the action that was going on behind them. When they turned around, they saw such an intimidating sight that they stopped shooting at the guy. The girl was no longer as human as she used to be. It really scared them. Her aunt was horrified by what she saw, not to mention the guards who assumed that Lin Wan's niece was a zombie. They didn't think such a thing was even possible. The creature pointed its finger at the guy, calling him a hunter. This hunter had found her after all, sensing her otherworldly energy. The guards were very frightened by the girl's hoarse voice, so they warned her that if she continued to approach, they would open fire on her, to which they replied that they were just food for the likes of this creature. With a wave of its finger, it threw one of the guards aside, causing the other guards to be even more shocked. It threw him into the car while the others watched and couldn't do anything about it. The force of the throw was so great that it left a huge dent in the car and flipped the car over. Auntie didn't understand anything at all. It was the first time in her practice. The guards were stunned until one of them told them to attack the creature. One of the guards was ordered to take Lin Wang with them and run away, for what they were dealing with was more mysterious by the minute. This creature had its own protective shield against all their bullets, so the fact that they were firing only amused it. This creature, with the power of its energy, lifted the car into the air and threw it at the other guards, causing the car to explode and the guards shooting at it to be destroyed. Ms. Wang tried to get out of this mess as quickly as possible. After all, protecting the boss was the most important goal for them. As she walked away, she still couldn't believe that this had happened to her niece. Looking back, she saw the horror of what the creature had done. It was destroying one guard after another in various ways. Lin Wang was getting more and more terrified as the guards began to run out and the next target was them. Frightened, Ms. Wang could not believe that just a few minutes ago she was sitting next to this monster in the same car and could not even imagine that such a thing could happen. Her thoughts were interrupted by a loud sound and the screaming of a guard who was trying his best to save his boss's life. A car flying nearby hit several other guards, rendering them incapacitated. In front of them, one of the guards tried to crawl away to avoid being destroyed. But this creature didn't think so, and pulled everyone back. Even the cars went up in the air from such a force. The creature was trying to tell the hunter that even though he thought she was easy prey, she was not, because who knows what she could transform into. After dealing with the pesky guards, it urged the hunter to finally start fighting. The guy immediately jumped towards it. With his weapon, he was calm as a fish in water. It turned to him, calling him a newcomer, after all, who rushes straight to a monster without a defense spell. The creature thought the guy was a professional at first, but it didn't expect him to be such an idiot. The creature thought it would instantly destroy the guy, but it severely underestimated him. The guy just punched the creature in the face, and it just flew away from him. As we can see, the creature's spells didn't work on the guy. When the creature regained consciousness, it was puzzled as to how her spells failed to work on the hunter. The guy asked her, "Spells? You mean this?" With a snap of his fingers, a multitude of flying ghosts appeared around him. The guard and Lin Wan just opened their mouths when they saw such a large number of ghosts, and what could be said about the number? It was the first time they had seen ghosts in their lives. It fiercely shouted that it was impossible. How could he know about this spell? The hunter replied that these ghosts had a dense cursed aura, and he could easily sense it from afar. After all, when this creature sacrificed them, it was probably using some cheap spell books. It began to smile, saying that it had gotten enough information from this hunter. A part of its head began to swell into something large. It also said, "You think you can defeat us because you've learned a few ways to counter our spells? What a shame. If it was a normal ghost, you would have won. But unfortunately for you, you have met us. God is what it called itself." This creature was not on the same level as the ghosts the hunter knew so well. This monster stated that the gulf between the hunter and him was so great that it would be hard for him to imagine. The people were even more amazed by what they saw. To them, now ghosts were not so scary anymore compared to this monster. But the hunter told this filthy demon to shut up because he was tired of hearing such things every time. It was greatly surprised at the insolence and audacity of this hunter. After clenching his fists tightly, it turned to him. "You dare to insult and ridicule God? Accept your punishment." After these words, it swung its energy-concentrating fist, and even all the ghosts standing around it rushed to attack to inflict joint damage on the hunter. The people were watching so intently that they didn't even realize how the attack happened so quickly. Someone was thrown out of the place and flew into the car behind them. As they turned around, they saw the creature lying on the road, unable to get up. The hunter remarked that it was as simple as defeating a child. It lay motionless. People thought it was the end of the story, but they were wrong. It was just beginning. The hunter only provoked the creature to use more of his power. As it began to transform into a bigger monster, it used its divine power amplification. It started to increase so much that people already needed to flee from this bridge. After becoming 5 times bigger, it roared wildly at the entire neighborhood. The hunter told the creature that its increase in size did not make it stronger, but only more disgusting. After saying that, the ferocious monster roared and attacked the hunter, and all the ghosts around it also obeyed him and rushed at the hunter. At that moment, time froze around the hunter. He was approached by someone calling him the gatekeeper and offered to help him defeat this monster. In return, this something asked only 10 souls. It will help to get rid of all these ghosts. But our guy was doing just fine on his own for now. So he refused their help, relying only on his own strength. He clenched his weapon tighter and said, "It will only take me 10 seconds to deal with such weaklings." From that demon's strongest strike, the road flew apart. The hunter chopped all the ghosts around with one swing, with his magic sword. The ghosts squealed in pain as he continued to chop them down. Remembering to dodge all of this giant's attacks, he chopped down the ghosts. The big demon was so angry, he called the hunter a goddamn coward as he dodged the attacks of the demon. The hunter answered him, "You want to die so quickly? Then let me strike." After saying that, he struck the demon's leg with his sword and then ran at it, cutting it into pieces. He was even more angry, for he hadn't thought of this turn of events. He was now ready to destroy the hunter as soon as possible, to which the hunter replied to him to keep dreaming. After these words, he began to cut him even faster, so that he could not strike as before, and he had no choice but to threaten the hunter. The ghosts rushed out to run away because their boss had been defeated, and there was nothing they could do to the hunter. The guard and Lin Wan saw the ghosts running, but they were caught up by the hunter's destruction, from which they were all destroyed. After cutting everyone into small pieces, the hunter stopped. The spirit flying into the sky addressed the hunter. "Just wait! How dare you destroy a body possessed by me? I will avenge you!" But the hunter disappointed them, for they wouldn't just be able to escape from him like that. Holding out his hand, he ordered them back in. They began to be sucked into him, and they begged him to spare them and let them go. Even though the ghost was already defeated, he still tried to scare the hunter with his name, saying he didn't know who he was dealing with yet. Sucking them into a glass magic ball, the demon inside the ball was trying to tell the hunter that the demon organization would not just leave it at that and would take revenge on him. But the hunter didn't care about that anymore. He just told that ghost to shut up. He turned to her saying, "You're just Paradise God Park. I've known about you for a long time, but you've piqued my interest. Didn't your leader tell you that this place is full of hunters? This is a restricted hunting area." Afterward, he shifted his gaze to the people, for they obviously wanted something from him. Lin Wan waved his hands, trying to attract attention. The hunter asked what they wanted from him, but they only pointed to the sky and asked him to look up there, because according to them, there was something there. The hunter procrastinated by not understanding them. Raising his head, he saw a glow in the sky. In the sky was a pictogram with an eye inside of it. As soon as he saw it, he immediately realized that it was their supreme leader, called Shooting Eye of God. He didn't understand why he was here, and now this situation was taking a new turn of events. He immediately started to run away, shouting to the people to run away as soon as possible. He managed to get far enough away to avoid hitting the people. He was shot from that pictograph. After that, we moved to the hospital, where it turned out that a policeman was asking the guard what had happened there. He told him that first there was a big demon, and then a huge eye in the sky, which shot beams of energy and defeated the hunter. You can see how that sounds and how the policeman took this information. He tried to explain to the guard that he had to tell the truth, but he wasn't lying. He was not in a good mood after this, because his 8 colleagues are in the hospital. The policeman asked to tell more, especially about his niece's killer, so that they could apprehend the perpetrator of everything as soon as possible. The guard gave him a picture of the monster that the hunter had defeated, saying it was the only proof. The cops didn't believe the photo. They thought it was fake. In one of the rooms were Lin Wang's niece and Ms. Wang herself and the hunter. They were in a serious condition, for it is hard to experience such a thing. Miss Wang would never have thought that this could happen to her niece. After all, they are rich, they have fame and influence. She didn't expect this, after all. Not long ago he was fine, and now he is lying here. She felt very sorry for him. Her aunt promised her that she would avenge her, that she would find the culprits and punish them, and that she should just stay here and recover. But what was her surprise when the other hunters came up to her? They told her it was a great pity to be possessed by a hateful spirit. Not many could survive such a thing. Ms. Wang asked who they were and how they got here. After all, this guard was full of guards and police officers. He introduced himself. His name is Zhao Shilong, and they have no bad intentions. He just wanted to ask her some questions. Looking at the hunter, he said, "This guy lying here doesn't like to talk, but he is their strong and reliable comrade. He is also his own brother. Last night he sent him on a mission and asked him to rescue a young girl possessed by a spirit, and in Zhao's opinion, he went through a tough fight. And she had to have seen it all. Afterward, he asked her a question. 'Can you tell me who defeated my brother?' She drew him roughly what she could see. Shilong scrutinized the drawing. He looked at it long enough. Miss Wang immediately told him that if he didn't understand something, he'd better let him ask right away. After all, she doesn't draw that well. After looking at the drawing, he asked her if she was sure about what she saw, namely, this eye. She told him that she was completely sure of it, and then told him how that eye had released a flash of light into his brother, and he had immediately lost consciousness. The girl looked at the drawing and remarked that it was very similar to the leader of the god nation called Shooting Eye of God, as she added that when people become his target, he leaves a mark on them and shoots until they die. When Shilong heard this, he immediately asked Ling Shuang to check if there were any marks on his brother's body. She immediately began to carry out the order. After scanning the guy, they immediately saw something wrong. A certain ghost that had been in the guy's body all this time appeared from him. The ghost was confident in his powers and was ready to destroy all the people standing in front of him. Shilong asked the ghost if he knew the rules of this world. Why did he come to the non-combat zone and try to kill one of them? The ghost was very angry because no one gave them the right to talk to him. He regarded them as trash, called them scum. He also told them to wait, for his men were on their way. The ghost leaned toward him and said that he would enjoy their screams as they begged for mercy. After which, he disappeared from their sight. Shilong asked his girlfriends that they should gather their entire team here, for they would have to fight many monsters. He asked them to make sure that their entire team would come. After he said that, one of his subordinates asked Ms. Wang to leave this place because it would soon become very dangerous for ordinary people, but she couldn't do so because her niece is still here and she is unconscious. How can she leave her family member? After that, there was a small explosion behind her. She was a little scared, but this girl used force to scare her. After all, Ms. Wang should have realized something. They don't try to negotiate or convince her. They're telling her it's better to leave. After all, their battle is not suitable for ordinary people like her to join. If she stays here, she will only get in the way and become easy prey for the ghosts. That very night, she left the ward and went to her guards. She had a worried look on her face, and the guards noticed it. She asked to inform the security department of the company to gather everyone in that hospital, because according to her, it is starting again, and her niece is in danger. The guards replied to her that it would be difficult because she was attacked by spirits, and several guards were seriously injured. This news was spread by the company. She didn't immediately realize what they were trying to tell her. He explained to her that it's a scary thing these ghosts are, and they would rather hide than risk their lives for her niece. Ms. Wang interrogated him. In his opinion, she should have abandoned her niece and run away from this hospital. Afterward, the guard gave out that in any case, the most important thing was to stay alive and not to put everyone else at such a risk. Therefore, he didn't want to give his life for anyone. The main one of the guards couldn't stand this cocky behavior. He grabbed him, asked him that getting a good paycheck is good, but when it gets dangerous, he decided to bail. He replied to him that they only want to make money and no one wants to give their lives away. Afterward, he added that Ms. S. life was amazing, so her death is not such a big deal. At such words, the bodyguard couldn't stand it and was about to smash his face, but they were stopped by Miss Wang, ordering them to leave this guy and the others behind. After all, she herself could save her niece. The guard did not close his mouth and advised her to save herself before saving her niece. After all, he'd heard she was also on the target list of these ghosts. But she didn't need his concerns. From this point on, he wasn't working for her anymore. She walked to the parking lot to her car, along with her trusty security guard. She was ready for anything, and she couldn't even wait any longer for the moment when they would start hunting her down. As she got into the car, she didn't immediately notice her bodyguards in the back seat. But then she wondered why they were here. They told her that they were willing to risk their lives for her. In Ms. Wang's opinion, they needed to recover because it was dangerous to follow her. But the bodyguard said he was determined. He was willing to do anything and would definitely not hide like the others. The second bodyguard remarked that this was the first time they had suffered such losses in the past few years. Therefore, the first goal on their way was to take revenge on the ghosts. She listened to them and ordered them to go, which they did. The rest of the bodyguards watched from the building as they drove away. His ward came up to him and informed him that some of the bodyguards had followed Ms. Wang. Afterward, he asked why on earth he was purposely pissing her off. Now she must hate him to death. He answered him that he had no choice. This place was too dangerous. If he hadn't pissed her off, she wouldn't have left. With her temper, she would have fought to the end with those ghosts. It was too dangerous. Even he wasn't confident in fighting against these ghosts, so he could only let Miss leave first. He didn't know if she was mad at him or not, but he could only say one thing: no matter what it was, if it threatened Miss Wang, then he would fight until his last breath, and no one would change that. This bodyguard was clearly up to something with his subordinates. At this moment, some girl was following Ms. Wang, and as soon as she saw her car and Ms. Wang herself inside, she dialed her boss, addressing him as Lord Shooting Eye, reporting that several people had left in the car, asked what she should do about it. We moved on to the Lord himself, who ordered her to leave no one alive, destroy all of them. After all, they had to keep their promise and destroy everyone. She listened to him completely and told her subordinates to destroy everyone. They went to carry out their order to destroy Ms. Wang. At the hospital, one of the nurses heard that many bodyguards had arrived today, and also many policemen had arrived. She assumed that some important person was being treated in their hospital. Another nurse told her that the head of Lin Shi's company, Ms. Wang, was in the hospital. She didn't know that, but when she heard that, she immediately told her friend that she would like to be like Ms. Wang. After all, she is very wealthy and can buy herself anything she wants. The other nurse interrupted her. Because they need to change the medicine or they will be fired and people will get sicker. They set to work setting up IVs. They went to work part-time on the night shift at the hospital to earn money to live on, one dreaming of new clothes and the other of a stocked refrigerator with all kinds of delicious food. She was so dreamy that she didn't even notice that the man lying behind her started to let down and was about to bite her neck. She screamed. Her friend heard it. She watched as the man tried to bite her, and she couldn't get away. He did start biting her, which made her scream even harder. Her friend didn't realize what was going on at first, and then she noticed another man coming up behind her and heading in her direction. He jumped at her, but she managed to bounce away so he wouldn't hit her. She realized that they were more like zombies. They all started to let down and walk towards her. She turned around and started running away from them. These zombified people tried to grab her, but they failed and she still made it to the door. The chase didn't end there. They ran with all their might after her. There were so many of them that it was hard for them to run in a crowd. They jumped on her, trying to knock her down somehow. As she went down the escalator, she saw another monster standing in her way, and his intentions were clearly not good. When she saw him in her way, she had no choice but to jump off the escalator. When she fell off it hard, she realized that her leg hurt a lot. She broke her leg, but she couldn't give up because she was too young to die. She was motivated by the fact that it was time to get out of here. With her broken leg, she walked towards the exit. But there were many other ghosts waiting for her. She didn't want to believe that it was over for her. Her scream was heard by the other patients who hadn't turned into such monsters. The hunter was unconscious, and the people who heard the nurse's scream immediately noticed a crowd of people running down the corridor. This crowd were zombies. Shilong realized that it had already begun. On one of the floors, zombies were falling from their injuries, one by one. All this was because the bodyguard was destroying them with his automatic rifle. He didn't retreat a single step, standing until the last. But there were too many of them. They demolished him and swarmed all over him. The woman and the child were watching because now they had to pray that the crowd would not notice them. The child was very scared. He was sobbing. The mother tried to calm him because he attracts a lot of attention. They will be able to notice them. The bodyguard had no choice but to pull the pin on the grenade to take as many of them as possible with him. Unfortunately, the grenade broke the window, and the way to the child and his mother was open. There was no end to these creatures. They quickly spotted the humans and immediately rushed to destroy them. The mother had already said goodbye to her life. But to their surprise, a huge metal table flew at the monsters, throwing them away from the humans. It was one of the hunters. He came to save the humans. With his bare hands, he destroyed them one by one, even using his abilities a little to hit them in packs. He urged them to fight him specifically so that they would not even think of attacking the weak. One of the monsters, who is much stronger than this rabble, turned to him, saying that he had long since become obsolete and should not draw attention to himself. Just as urged him to stay in the shadows and wait to be recruited to their side, that big guy was only pissed off. Ms. Wang was driving her car at this time. The guards alerted her that they were being tailed, and these monsters wouldn't just let them go. The three monsters ran after her. They ran so fast that they started to catch up with the car. One of the guards thought that they drank gasoline as kids since they were running so fast. Their speed was over 80 miles per hour. They were definitely not human. Ms. Wang watched them through the window, and she heard carrier death detected in 1 minute, whispered in her head. Death deity system forcibly activated. She was thrown into another dimension. She didn't realize who was saying it or where she had been transported to. A voice spoke to her from above, telling her that this was the place of the death deity. She had been chosen to be the deity of death. When she encounters danger, there will be an official opportunity to use the death deity's skill. The death deity's first-level eye allows her to recognize a dangerous situation a minute before it happens. The ability has a recharge time of 5 days. With this ability, she could easily avoid danger, but only once every 5 days. She wondered what this thing was and why it was talking. After activating the deity eye, she moved to her world and saw the monsters catching up to the car. The guards are shooting back. Even though the monsters are far away, they are using their abilities. A sudden jerk, and he disappeared from the guard's sight. Right on top of their car, he uses his powers and blew up their car, destroying almost everyone inside. Ms. Wang survived the explosion, but he didn't give up so easily and proceeded to destroy her. While destroying her, he repeated that the leader had ordered him to leave no one alive. After this turn of events, she was brought back to the human world. She was as if in a trance for a couple of seconds, then came back. She also learned that if she did something special and survived, she would be rewarded with the deity skill, Divine Space. If she fails, the system will select a new host. She realized this was her chance to save them all and destroy one of the monsters, and that's when it all started. The monster approached and disappeared from the guard's sight. She immediately realized it was on top of the machine. Ms. Wang grabbed the steering wheel to turn a little to avoid the monster. And it worked. The monster missed, and she survived. That monster didn't understand how they were able to dodge it. They were ordinary mortals. But she didn't end there. She immediately turned the steering wheel the other way and pointed the car at the demon. Slamming into him, she began dragging him around the building, doing some damage. He was only slightly injured, but this was a demon from another world, so it wasn't much damage to him, although it was very unpleasant. He was covered in bruises and abrasions. Getting up, he was determined to kill them. The guard was ready to start shooting at him again, but Miss Wang said that this demon no longer had a chance to approach them again. The guard didn't immediately realize what she was talking about, but as he looked at her, he saw on her finger the rings from the grenade had been pulled out. Demon also felt something under his clothes, and before he knew what it was, there was a huge explosion. The bodyguards looked at Ms. Wang, and they were glad to see that, so strong was she. She knew it wasn't the right time to explain it to them, since there were 2 more demons still there. As soon as she said they had to be careful, something burst out of the ground that pierced their car and stopped them completely. It was something like a rhinoceros. It threw the car off its horn, straight into the building. Ms. Wang was lying inside the car. It wasn't easy for her to survive something like that. That demon was already looking at her. After he got her, there was a girl sitting on his shoulder. She was one of the demons. This girl thought that Miss Wang was much stronger since she was able to kill one of the demons. But afterwards, she realized that it wasn't true at all. She ordered the demon to kill her to get it over with quickly. He accepted his order and started squeezing her in his hand. It was entertaining for this girl to watch people break inside this giant's hands. She was interrupted by, "Stop!" A portal opened up in front of them as if to cut through matter and space. A man came out of it. It was the same hunter. He was furious because he was almost killed by the eye of a god, and now he wants to take revenge on him and everyone involved. So he suggested that they run away while they could. This girl only laughed at his words. She told him that who was he to give out instructions here? Maybe he hit his head. He was trying to give them a chance. Afterward, he opened the barrier system, ordered them to get ready to come out and have some fun for a while. He was immediately approached by someone from his barrier that he was very happy to finally get out and deal with anyone, as he promised to deal with them in a few seconds. She was confident in her powers, so she mocked him. Then she remembered that he was the scum whose body had suffered a single shot from the eye of a god. Methinks it would be better if he continued to lie in the hospital waiting for his death. After saying these words, a blow was struck at them, with such force that the Rhino's arm was torn off, and the demon girl was thrown into a neighboring building. He warned them to let Ms. Wang go, after which he was going to keep his word and destroy them both. She couldn't believe her eyes. It was impossible. He shouldn't even have been able to stand up after being shot by the eye of God, but as she could see, he was still strong with such an injury. He told her that he was just not careful that time and used his physical body to block the blow. She thought he was lying to her. After all, a god's shot could wipe out an entire army. How could he hold back a blow with just his physical body? He told her that he was just very strong, and to prevent sneak attacks and ambushes against him, he should show her his real strength. She didn't realize what real strength was. He immediately used summoning magic. He warned her that they should have tried to kill him before he used that power. Now he wouldn't leave them a chance. He started laughing, but she didn't understand what was going on here. The hunter asked her if she was afraid of him now, to which she replied that she had nothing to fear since he hadn't summoned anyone. She transformed into a monster and showed her true power. He realized that she couldn't see what he had summoned, so she was too weak to see it. She pounced on him, saying he was a weakling who liked to show off. He realized that she was already going to be destroyed anyway. As he swung, just before she died, she saw a summoned creature that was eager to destroy a minnow like her. Ms. Wang managed to lie on the ground so that this strongest blow would not affect her. That girl tried to apologize. She didn't want to be destroyed, but it was already too late. He was giving her a chance. Afterward, he began to absorb her soul, just like when he absorbed the soul of the demon on the bridge. She really didn't want to be imprisoned, but he warned her, but no one listened to him. After the absorption, he spoke to Ms. Wang, telling her not to be afraid of him because he came here to save her. Afterward, he told her that he had to take her to the hospital because it was the safest place than standing here in the open. He also noticed that she was stronger than before. He assumed it was because of the other place. She realized what he was talking about. the strange creature that had given her a chance to survive by showing her the future. Then he explained to her that she could do the tasks she would be given, and she would become much stronger than she was now. It's all like a game. The more tasks you do, the stronger you become. She realized that these tasks were quite dangerous. Even if she would get something valuable for it, she wasn't very interested in it, because she was very rich. So she didn't need anything, no rewards, because it was dangerous. And even if she wasn't saved now, she wouldn't be sitting here talking anymore. So she didn't want to go to the hospital and do something dangerous to her life. After what she said, the hunter laughed a little, for he realized she was a little hysterical. She wondered what she had said that was so funny. He told her the truth, that some tasks must be done, whether you want them or not. After all, he was in the hospital a few minutes ago, and it was very hard for him. But the system had decided otherwise, telling him to kill monsters. He had no choice. She wondered what the consequences would be if she didn't. What could they do? Hunter remembered how earlier he had met a man who had been chosen by the system, and he was determined not to fulfill the system's tasks. He had laughed at the tasks and not completing them. One such task was to go to the morgue to get a dead man's heart, and this man was sick of the heart, so he didn't do the task. Ms. Van Sallow wondered what had happened to him. Next, she heard that he was forcibly brought to the morgue that night. No one knew what he had been through, but the screaming in the morgue did not stop that night. She was shocked by what she heard and said it was very horrible and violent. The hunter realized that it was not cruel at all, because the system was not as simple as she thought. The case was not yet finished. 2 months later, Hunter went to an abandoned ghost building in the suburbs to complete a mission. What he saw there that time he would never forget. There was a bound man begging to be released. He was willing to listen intently to the hunter and vowed to never contradict the system again. He begged for mercy to be released and was willing to do any task or request of the system just to be released from this torment. He begged to be done with it, begged for his own imminent demise, but the creature controlled him and screamed, "Don't let me come back to life again." She was so stunned by what she heard that a light, cold sweat ran down her body, making her slightly stunned. The hunter told her that the system treated him like a chicken, and every day he was killed, then brought back to life. Hunter leaned over to her and asked again if there was anything else she didn't want to do. She smiled hysterically and told him that these tasks were really interesting. Hunter, with a smirk on his face, realized that her answer was a wise one, for now she obviously wouldn't contradict the system. He then invited her to come with him and with a flick of his finger opened a portal, promising to guide her to a world of perfection, so they entered the portal. As they stepped out of the portal, they saw a young girl in front of them who was clearly expecting them at this place. She was not in the best of moods, as she probably realized that her team members had already been banished from this world, but she still asked where they were. The hunter told her that since they were here, she should understand what had happened to them. She was ready to avenge her brothers. Ms. Wang asked if these people were all doing missions for the system. The hunter answered her that they are a group of hunters who rob other people's souls. They have nothing to do with the system. These non-humans turn other people's souls into soul power and use the soul power to develop and mutate their own bodies. The girl swung her blade and had already approached the hunter. At this moment, he was telling Miss Wang that most of the System S tasks were designed to solve them. He repelled her attack in one movement, and he noticed that her hidden attack was very rude and dishonest. She asked him if he didn't care what he did to the dying, because he didn't care. And at that moment, she steadily stood on one foot, to strike with her left foot, because that would be unpredictable. But as we see, he blocked the blow and lashed out in the other direction. These attacks were too slow for him. He read her like a book. She got angry and sent him to hell, starting to attack him with her hands. But he fended off her attacks as if he knew everything up front, blocking every blow, laughing at her and telling her to relax. But she tried her luck at hitting him with her foot again, asking him if that was all he was capable of doing. When he hit the hunter, it was nothing to him. But when he hit her, she was slammed into the wall. It would seem that such a fragile girl would not be able to get up, but she was not as fragile as she seemed at first glance. Her body glowed, and the fight was gaining momentum. Hunter thought that this was the end of it, but Miss Wang was puzzled. How those enemies were so strong, and this one was suddenly weak. There was no way it could be like this. Hunter realized that since she had asked about the team members, she was hardly a fragile girl. He assumed that she was probably the captain of the team, so she was as strong as the others. But then why did he manage to throw her into the wall with ease? She began to transform and asked them to shut their mouths. Having transformed her soul, she changed greatly, and in an instant struck at them. Soul skills were very fast, so she moved at super laser speed. She was moving and talking so fast that she could be heard from everywhere. She also didn't understand why this hunter was still so arrogant. After all, he had seen their strength. They weren't weak at all. She was against humiliation from the hunter, so she was going to cut them into hundreds of pieces. Miss Wang expressed her indignation. After all, the hunter had beaten this girl, not Miss Wang, so she didn't understand why she was going to kill both of them. The hunter noticed that Miss Wang was pleased when he beat up this thief. But Miss Wang said that he was definitely imagining it, for she was not guilty of it. The girl was very angry with both of them and had already decided to end the meaningless chatter. At a super-fast speed, she flew behind him and was ready to cut him in two with her powerful blade. He noticed her and decided to ask the god for help. Alas, she did not notice him. This summoned god hit her with such force that her costume shattered. She flew in the other direction away from the hunter, and apparently her acceleration was now at an end. The hunter urged her not to get up again, as the difference in their strengths was too great, and also asked her to call her boss, who had taught her these sneaky and stealthy attacks, as she was no match for him. Without sitting down, she told him that she would not call her boss because, in her opinion, none of them would survive today. Everyone in this hospital, including him, would die. The hunter already thought he hit her so hard that she lost her mind. After all, this city, the city of the Blue Star, it is protected by hunters like him. The only thing he can do is shoot her. After all, there are 7 like him here. She kept saying that even if there were 70 of them, it wouldn't make any difference. They'd all die, because according to her, no one had any idea what they'd be facing. The hunter was amused by her words. But the ghost he had absorbed had told him that her soul would not lie, and that was a little strange. Hunter wondered who gave them such confidence that they would definitely die. After all, they have 2 captain-level combat units here. They also have 3 captains who can support them at any moment. Hunter wanted to make a good suggestion. The Blue Star City is surrounded by the Chaos Zone. A life with 9 deaths she spent there is definitely not worth it. Sneaking across the border on high-speed tunnel trains is unrealistic because it is simply impossible to pass inspection along the way. For teleportation, the further the distance, the greater the consumption. You can only build teleportation gates in the nearest Moon City. And even in Moon City, they will have to kill thousands of people to gather enough soul power to activate the teleportation system. By then, the system will definitely find you. It's really a headache, because how can they have so much confidence that they'll definitely be able to kill them? The hunter strongly does not want to lose his temper, so he asked nicely to tell him. But she only told him with a smirk on her face to dream further about such an easy way. After all, she was sure that they would tear them apart, and she would quietly assess his pathetic cries from the sidelines. She was sure this was his destiny. The hunter pointed his palm towards her. She wouldn't have that chance. He began the devouring of her soul. She was very surprised. She asked him to wait. She didn't understand what he was doing. But her soul had already left her body. The hunter asked her if she was still nervous. She tried to stop him, saying that she was wrong, but it was too late for that. He looked at the color of her soul and realized that, judging by the color, she was telling the truth. Apparently, something was being ignored by the system, and that was scary because now they could really be in trouble. The hunter speculated that they might have missed something. We are then transported to the events that take place at the hospital, the girl desperately pleading not to kill her. 2 servants were holding her, and in front of her was a certain monster who told her that she was mortal and should feel extremely joyful and happy that she would sacrifice herself to the great Lord. So he told her to smile before this procedure, placing a large red ball in front of her, which exploded and blew apart at the same second. This explosion rippled throughout the building, and our hunter heard it and suspected something wrong. He smelled a heavy evil spirit being released, and immediately the Blue Star City emergency mission order was flashed to him. He was given new tasks. Task 1, investigate the hospital floors 1 through 12. Task 2, find out the source of the large amount of demonic energy in the hospital. Task 3, destroy the monsters in the hospital. Our hunter had 12 hours to complete this task. Ms. Wong noticed that the building had become very terrifying, and she asked the hunter if the system wanted them to enter the building. The hunter explained to her that the announcement had been sent out to the entire city, meaning that all the experts chosen by the system could participate. He also noted that such a temporary assignment was rare, and it was given to a lot of people. Something terrible seemed to have happened at the hospital. Meanwhile, there were eerie screams and hoarse voices in the hospital. The guy was already at the end of his strength, protecting the woman and child. The monster was a little disappointed because it didn't even put in much effort, and the guy was already almost exhausted. But the guy let the monster know that he was just getting started, because he was beginning to realize his potential in life and start to really compete with him. Meaning to fight hard, the monster implied. After that, the monster decided to continue transforming his body. The monster decided to show him what true despair was. He began to be blown in different directions. This monster applied a second soul transformation. After that, an explosion and a strong gust of wind was formed. The guy didn't realize where he got so much soul power from. After that, there was a lot of smoke, and the guy couldn't see what it had transformed into right away, but as soon as the smoke cleared, he saw a giant monster in front of him, which he couldn't understand how it could fit in this hospital. It was urging him to start round 2. The guy looked at it and didn't understand how this was possible, how it had evolved into such a powerful being. Hunter approached the hospital, hearing only the screams of poor people and many different sounds similar to demons. Opening the front doors, he saw the first monster in his path levitating above the ground. Looking closer, he saw a girl who had been reincarnated and had consumed many of the dead souls of this hospital who were still living and begging for a quick death. For now, their lives were filled with eternal suffering. Hunter saw her and realized that the way to the 12th floor would be a busy affair. Miss Wang did not understand everything that was happening and how to behave in such situations. Blue Star City is a safe zone, so why even Earth-possessed spirits appear? This was something the two of them did not understand. The weapons created with soul power by the highest leadership of the Paradise Gods were specially designed to fight against the highest combat power of the system. They killed a large number of inhabitants in one place and bound their souls to prevent their soul power from leaking out, so that they could later use a large number of evil spells to refine soul power weapons that could take those poor souls hundreds of years to create. In short, buildings that can't be moved will be turned into Earth-possessed spirits. That's just why they ended up here. Ms. Wong swept up that the hunter should be able to handle them. After all, he was the best she could meet of hunters. The hunter told her that it would be difficult to deal with this monster. After all, in the past, captain-level battle teams formed battle groups to eliminate underground branches. Fortunately, he has Ms. Wang. According to the hunter's estimation, they will be able to handle the monster with just the two of them.